Hey, junkies, Man Dullins here. Hope all is well considering the circumstances and you guys are keeping as safe as possible out there. So, this video I actually had zero intentions of making. However, I was perusing through my favorite grocery store and noticed that they had a bunch of meat that was marked down. And, sometimes you just need to listen with your ears and take in what that meat department is singing to you. So, what spoke to my heart was this beef carne picada that they had marked for 30% off. So, I thought to myself, you know what a bargain. These videos that we do here, the Dystopian Dining, are all about that frugal lifestyle. So, figured we'd grab it, make a stew out of it, do what we can. Now, just so you know, you're probably wondering, what is beef carne picada? You'll see it when we put it in our pot and start browning it off and caramelizing it. But it's basically minced chuck roast. Very flavorful. However, a chuck roast or chuck steak is something that you probably want to cook slowly, whereas it's very flavorful. There's a lot of connective tissue, so it definitely suits itself well for a stew. We seasoned the minced chuck roast or the picada with our usual smoky Sicilian spice blend. And along with that, we marinated it with a nice combination of sweet, sour, so some olive oil, garlic, honey, threw in some apple cider vinegar, and olive oil, honey, apple cider vinegar, and that was it. And it's been marinating overnight for about 14 hours. So we're going to throw some olive oil in our pot, brown it up, and while we do that, we're going to make our garlic pepper paste to further marinate and flavor that oil, and then we'll get our vegetables chopped up. So stay tuned. Thank you as always for hanging with us. Bang the like button, subscribe, and come along for the journey. So aside from the meat that we got a great deal on, we've also hydrated some black beans, which from prior videos we've gone into how to hydrate your beans, how to get them dry, rinse them off, then just add water and let them again hydrate. So this is going to be a black bean picada stew of sorts. The flavors we'll be using will be that smoky Sicilian seasoning that we use very often. It's the red one. So we're gonna brown off our meat, caramelize it, and we're gonna remove it from the pot. Then make our garlic pepper paste as we normally do to further flavor the olive oil, and then we're gonna put in our chopped vegetables and do what we normally do. So hang tight. Time to add our picada into the hot oil. We're going to be careful while doing this, try not to burn ourselves. But here's our pot with oil. The meat's going to go in first to brown, cook, sear, and caramelize. So we're going to constantly move this around, make sure every bit of this gets browned. Be careful. There is a good amount of fat in this minced chuck roast. So let's brown this up and keep it moving. You can see how our minced meat has gotten nice and colored. It has cooked and caramelized nicely. So what we're going to do is take it out while leaving the oil in. Again, it's all about building flavors. And then when the oil cools off, we'll add our garlic and pepper paste, of which we're about to cut. So I'll show you how we do that as always, because I'm always getting questions on how to make that paste. So really not rocket science. So let's take out the meat, let the oil cool down, because when we put that paste in to further flavor the oil, we don't want it to burn, or else it'll get really bitter and disgusting. So let's go ahead and do that, and we'll meet you junkies back after all of which is completed. Oh, wanted to hop in here real quick to actually show you the piccata after we removed it from our oil. So you can see nice, crispy, nice color. And this is the oil. Look at all that flavor in the oil. And that's before we add our garlic pepper paste. But that is just beautiful. And we have even more flavor on the bottom, which will eventually deglaze the entire pot with both red wine and some hot sauce. So those steps are a little further along, but that's just going to be absolutely delicious as we keep building layer upon layer upon layer of flavor. So let's make that garlic pepper paste. All right, junkies, tools of the trade for our garlic pepper paste. We're going to use our microplane, which is such a great tool in the kitchen. The tools I really prefer are ones that have multiple uses, and a microplane is great from everything such as zesting citrus to grating garlic. You could also use it for nutmeg or anything else you want really finely grated. But just a microplane and a knife. So let's go ahead and get started here. So after we mince our garlic and chop the stems off of our peppers, we're going to add a little bit of salt before we further cut with the knife. Now, as discussed previously, the salt, what that's going to do is, aside from draw moisture out of the ingredients and make the paste, but it's also going to act as an abrasive. So as you're running your knife through the garlic and the peppers, the salt are going to act like a bunch of teeth, almost like sandpaper, and further make that paste. So it's just a little trick right there, along with, of course, adding even more flavor to the party. Here is our garlic and peppers all minced up into a paste or a bouquet of flavor. So let's get this to further season our oil. Let's see if we could do this in one shot. There we go. It's pretty impressive. And in the pool you go. There we go. It's just, again, we not only did we turn the heat off, but we also removed the pot from the heat. The last thing we want to do is burn the garlic and peppers. So, rather safe than sorry. We have our vegetables cut up. Here's our browned meat, the black beans that we showed earlier, our flavored oil. You can see how our garlic pepper paste has removed a lot of those bits off the bottom, so it's already done a pretty decent job of deglazing or removing the fond or flavor that was stuck on the bottom. So next step is we're going to crank up the heat put in our vegetables, and do what we normally do. Again, this is rocket science. Please do not be afraid of messing anything up. If you haven't noticed already, a lot of these recipes are exactly the same procedure. You know, the flavor profiles may change, the ingredients may change, but frankly, the vegetables typically stay the same. We have onions, peppers, carrots, celery, zucchini, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, and of course cabbage. And that's really it, guys. So let this temperature come up a little bit. We'll start cooking down and sweating off our vegetables till they reduce in size. Again, we went over that in the last video, why it's so important that you do that properly. That has an end result on the texture. Yeah, already hear that. Starting to get hot. So let's keep it moving. All right, everyone in the pool. We'll take our seasoning. Start seasoning this up. Making sure everything gets nice and coated. Just so you can see here, we have this at medium heat. Doing this nice and slow. You want this to cook down. You want these vegetables to release their water. If you didn't realize, vegetables, fruits are mostly water. So you want that water to be released, that moisture to come out so they cook down and release also a lot of their sugars as the vegetables get caramelized. It is time to hit our pot with our hot sauce. You can see how much those vegetables have cooked down. The steam and the water that's leaving the pot as those vegetables continue to gain flavor. About that much hot sauce. We'll stir that in. Also, we'll be deglazing our pot with a nice dry red wine from Sicily. And this is actually what we'll be pairing with our stew as well. More on that when we get to that. So let's stir in this hot sauce. We've stirred in our hot sauce, and now it's time to deglaze our pot with that lovely bottle of Sicilian wine that was bought for about, I think it was $6 at Trader Joe's. Now you can see on the bottom, again, we've called out the fond, where the flavor lives. All deglazing means is removing that by way of a cooking liquid, right? So the vinegar in the hot sauce, most hot sauce is really just vinegar. That's the main ingredient, and of course peppers. The vinegar helps remove that, and the wine will also remove most of that. Now, rule of thumb when cooking with wine, you're only going to cook with a wine that you would drink, because when you cook with wine, it becomes concentrated. So obviously you're not going to cook with something you wouldn't drink. So let's add a little bit. It's about good. Incorporate that. Wish you guys could smell what I'm smelling right now. Again, the heat is still on, about medium. You don't want to rush this. There's really no reason to rush it. And I'm doing this with one hand, but even with one hand, you can see a lot of those A lot of that bottom flavor on the pot has been removed by the wine. So again, it's all about building flavors. That's what that frugal lifestyle is all about, building flavors. So let's continue here, and then we're going to add our piccata, our minced chuck roast in, then our black beans, and then we're going to add water, bring that to a boil, and let it reduce. Time to add our animal. Now you see all that flavor that's still on the dish? When we eventually add our water, what we'll do is we'll rinse the dish into our container that we'll be filling up with water to add. So don't let any of that flavor go to waste. Bean time. Now before we add the beans, I just want to show you how the bottom of this pot is completely clean. Oh. All of the fond, all of that flavor on the bottom, all of those tasty bits have been completely removed by the deglazing by both the wine and the hot sauce. So let's get our black beans in and stir those in and let it cook for about a minute before we add our water. So we're on the home stretch, junkies. Let's add our liquid, and like I said earlier, we do not want to waste any of these tasty bits. So what we're going to do here is we're going to grab the plate, rinse it off like this. I'm doing this with one hand, bear with me. You guys get the point. We're going to fill this with water. And you can see a lot of that flavor floating around. And in it goes. I'll show you exactly what we fill it to, so you can then see how much it'll eventually reduce. You get here in the background we're going for round 2, filling our thing up with water. That should be enough. And let's add. Perfect. So that's how much liquid we got. We're going to shoot this up to high, bring to a boil like we normally do. Then we're going to throw the cover on so it actually comes to a boil much quicker. Then once it's at a boil, we'll bring it down to a simmer by lowering the heat and removing the cover so moisture could escape, further reducing our stew. As we wait for this to come to a boil, I just want to show you junkies the actual color that we got going on right now. It is absolutely beautiful, this shade of red, which I'm sure the black beans are making it a little darker as well. But you can tell you're on the right track, especially at this step, just by the color of your liquid. Because the color of your cooking liquid is reflective of the process. So all those flavors you developed from the very beginning, from browning your meat to that garlic and pepper paste, and that obviously sets the foundation by flavoring the oil, and then of course carefully adding those vegetables and cooking them down. So, you know, when you're working with something and it slowly develops into a product, you've really got to not only emphasize, but you really have to, you know, kind of pat yourself on the back for all the foundational steps that you took to get to this point. Like anything else, right? People just see the tip of the iceberg, but below the water are all those steps that allow you to sink your bowl and shoot again. So let's let this come to a boil, and then we'll turn down the heat, let it simmer, and it'll be finished up in a few hours. This is about to come to a boil. I don't want it to spill over again and have it make a mess. So we're pretty much there. Good enough. Let's lower the heat and throw our cover back on, just in case it does bubble over. But I think we caught it in time. So now that it's at a boil, we're going to remove that cap, the cover, cap, cover, same thing, and make sure the cover is ajar, slightly open, which will allow water to leave the pot as opposed to hit the top of the lid and fall back down, thus resulting in the stew reducing. So we'll check back in on this in a few hours, give it the old spoon test to see how it's coming along, and we'll take it from there, junkies. We're a couple of hours into our journey here. Let's take a look. You already see how much it is reduced down by. See how pretty it looks. All those lovely black beans and pica. We're gonna add our cilantro. If you remember, we always wait to add it. We don't want to scorch the flavor out of the cilantro and cook it to death. We're cooking here, not boiling. So it looks like it's got another couple of hours, and we'll check on it and see where we're at. Let's add some bay leaves to the party. Stir those in. We could have added the bay leaves with the parsley. Excuse me. I added the bay leaves with the cilantro. I just didn't. I forgot. So, you know, we're just adding it 5 minutes later. So, no big deal. But point being is that you don't want to necessarily scorch and damage, you know, the leaves. So that's why I always add the cilantro and bay leaves later on in the journey. All right, let's give it some more time and check in. The spoon is stiff, so you know we're ready to go, junkies. So this has been cooking for about 5 hours. You can see how much it has reduced since the last time I brought it to your attention. We're going to let this sit, cool down a little bit. We'll plate it up. I'll show you how we're going to pair it to that delicious Sicilian dry wine that we got from Trader Joe's. This is also what we used to deglaze the pot. So hang tight, we'll get this plated up and call it a day. Alright, junkies, we have completed making our black bean pica stew. You see the black beans we used, that minced chuck roast that we got a great deal on. We're going to pair this with that Sicilian wine, that dry red Sicilian wine from Trader Joe's. Again, I don't think this cost any more than $6-7, may have even been less than that. But it's absolutely delicious. It was the same wine that we deglazed our pot with. And as I said earlier, rule of thumb, you're not going to cook with a wine you're not going to drink, because when you cook with wine, along with the actual alcohol, well, most of the alcohol being cooked off, the flavor is going to concentrate. So that's why you always want to cook with a wine that you love, and I do love that wine. The glass may look very familiar. Shout out to Robots Will Kill, Chris. He will likely be down here. He's got a show, I believe is in August or June. I'll post the details in the description. But Chris of Robots Will Kill will be down here in Tampa over the summer. So super stoked to have him. This glass was a limited edition offer from, I believe it was Beer Collective. So I'll also put that link in the description. But like I said, we made some quick work here. I wasn't really looking to do a big in-depth video. Just perusing the meat section over at Saves a Lot, and saw a really good deal on some meat, on some beef that would otherwise be a good chunk of change. So you saw it on the receipt. So it's all about living that frugal life, dystopian dining. So as always, thank you, junkies. Please subscribe, hit the alerts so you're up to date on everything we have going on. Please stay well. More importantly, stay safe out there and wash your junk. Take care, guys.